What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your Star Wars breakdown today. My name is Pat Sheehan with Grand Supreme Leader David Martinson. Dave, how are you feeling after seeing the end of the Skywalker saga?
I have some notes. How about you?
um, yeah, I've been texting quite a few people about this today, and my general reaction has been it's a very entertaining movie,
Yes.
and that's where maybe we'll start with this. And before we get too far into our thoughts, if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, hit that subscribe button. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to follow the podcast any way you want to. Dave, here you agree that it was entertaining. What was your movie going experience like last night? Let's start there.
6 p.m. Dolby Cinema. Shout out the contrast. Shout out the real color black. You don't know what that shit looks like unless you go.
My theater was going wild for the contrast last night. People were like, "Woo!" Like,
there was guys next to me making the same jokes we always do. I was like, "My man, I appreciate that."
Did you tell them to listen to the podcast?
Yeah, I dropped the business card. I believe it was completely sold out. There might have been a seat or two in the very front that was open, but it's funny. Everyone was pretty locked in the whole time. There's not a lot of talking. I never saw a phone screen. Some claps at the end, but it seemed everyone was very focused on the screen, which I think is important because you really got to pay attention.
Yeah. Did you have cheering throughout yours or booing?
Some. Yeah, some. No boos. Yeah. There's some cheers, yeah. Not as raucous as I've experienced in other set situations, but yeah.
Yeah, well, my theater, we had, it was same as yours, pretty much completely sold out, 9:45 p.m. showing, so later crowd, and a lot of people cheering. Apparently, friends of the pod, Sean McKenna, and I think other friends of ours were with him, said that there was a lot of booing in his. People really not liking some of the choices in the film, which I found interesting because if anything, this is a fan servicey film.
I know that is interesting.
Yeah, this is made.
They might be friends of ours. These booers.
Definitely the Last Jedi fans for sure. And maybe that's a good place to jump into it. So there's a lot to talk about with this movie. We're going to try to break it down as much as we can. We want to start with what was going on around this movie even before it was released, right? So Last Jedi came out 2 years ago, 2017.
Long 2 years. My God.
It feels like a very long 2 years. And that's mostly because the discourse around The Last Jedi has been exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point, it was it split critics and Star Wars fans kind of down the middle, and maybe not even down the middle, a very vocal minority, especially online.
I wouldn't say it split critics. I think it was pretty universally beloved with critics, but yeah, the fan split was incredibly polarizing and hard to ignore because both sides at least had very vocal members. Tough to know exactly what the percentage of that split would be with a movie of this size, but yeah, the relitigation of the film and what the film did and didn't do. As you said, this became pretty unbearable and to stop being fun to talk about, which is annoying because you would hope that actually talking about stuff in the universe we all love would be fun, but it stopped being fun, I'd say.
Yeah, and it got to the point where this vocal minority had raised quite a bit of money to try to get it remade, get J.J. Abrams back behind the camera and remake The Last Jedi.
I'd say it's important to note too that there's those real dorks to remake The Last Jedi people, and then there's just other people that just didn't enjoy the movie. I mean, I think it is a minority, but it's not like a little tiny subset. It's definitely a large amount of people. But the remake The Last Jedi people, the reshoot Game of Thrones season 8 people, you can't take those people seriously. They have nothing of value to share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what I can see, I mean, a lot of what people disliked about this movie was it definitely changed the story up a bit. The story that had been primarily about um, these very specific families and people and lineage coming from these families and people, and it kind of expanded the view, saying, "Hey, anyone can be a Jedi. That these powers are not exclusive to just the people that already have it." Which I think was something that critics liked and fans did not, or a decent amount of fans did not. I've seen a lot of people talking about how they felt like the character development in it didn't make a lot of sense. And I'm not sure if I agree with that, but certainly that's a take that's out there. And, one of the things I think I liked most about the film that maybe didn't resonate with the fans is the humanity it kind of brought to the Star Wars saga, because, not only were they highlighting how Rey, her parentage actually didn't matter in The Last Jedi, and again bringing in the idea that like you can come from nothing and be something, but also it highlighted some of the issues that maybe the downtrodden on these planets face that we don't necessarily see in the effects of the First Order and things like that, and specifically like wealthy versus unwealthy,
war profiteering, stuff like that. Yeah,
correct. Any other critiques of the movie that maybe I overlooked there?
Well, I think it's important to even look back, of course, to Force Awakens, JJ's first foray, 2015, first Star Wars movie since Disney purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion in 2012. And that movie had a lot riding on it. That had to not reestablish the brand, but reestablish at least confidence or the sense of feeling in the movies after the prequels, of course, which I'd say are popular with a certain, generation of people. I think people our age that were young when they came out, but obviously not great films. And Force Awakens was successful in that, and even if it was familiar from a structural standpoint to A New Hope, a lot of winning casting with, Rey, Kylo, Finn, and Poe, and that sense of being back and feeling good again about Star Wars was achieved. And when it's a brand management of that magnitude, it's makes sense that was the main goal. But in Last Jedi, I think there were some people that were actually invested in a lot of the setup in Force Awakens. JJ had the strengths of JJ Abrams, and we're going to get to his deficiencies in a second, obviously, but his strengths has always been kind of opening the box, establishing the field of play. Think Star Trek 2009, think Mission Impossible 3. The best JJ moments are when he makes you feel good again. In a sense, his new deal with Warner Brothers kind of makes sense that he should do that with Superman and Man of Steel 2 or something. Reestablish Superman, make you feel good about that overall. He did that with Force Awakens, but he didn't actually lay any groundwork. He just kind of asked a lot of things. Rey's parents, who are they? Snoke, who is anything with that, right? Why did Kylo go bad? Where is Luke? He's, there's really nothing is laid out. Just all these questions are asked. And Rian Johnson with Last Jedi actually didn't keep looking in the past. He started to look and see if Star Wars could be different. And I think, unfortunately, I think more people would be agreeable to a lot of the things he introduced if it wasn't revolving around Luke Skywalker, the character everyone loves so much. So the choices with Luke, losing faith and, lashing out at Ben Solo and causing what happens and stuff like that. Unfortunately, some people just couldn't grasp that. And I think that was really frustrating because like Luke not just being a binary good person and thinker is fascinating and interesting. And Last Jedi just kind of showed what Star Wars could be going forward, because we know it's never going away, right? And also, of course, the script is really tight and the cinematography and the editing looks great. And God, did that, rewatching Force Awakens, Last Jedi leading up to Rise of Skywalker, that was fresh in my mind. And you watch Rise of Skywalker, and like, oh, The Last Jedi, man, is in a different stratosphere when it comes to filmmaking. Like, Rise of Skywalker does not look nearly as good, and I was just disappointed in that. So yeah, there's a lot going on um, leading into this movie, and it's kind of crazy how fraught the Star Wars brand has been in a certain sense. And I think ultimately, I think we can kind of safely attribute this to the leadership more than anything else. You know, that's something that's not a new thought, but I think it's pretty abundant at this point, just because Lucasfilm clearly changed what they wanted. They kind of gave Rian Johnson an open book, let him actually try stuff with Last Jedi. Got some backlash to that, a lot of backlash to that. So like, all right, actually, no, let's just go back and do what we used to do and make people feel good again. You know, it's just the 180 of that is just really disappointing.
Certainly. And, I think you did a good job summarizing. I think when you think about what was leading up to this movie, beyond The Last Jedi backlash, the atmosphere from the fandom around it, and the response from Disney to then bring in Abrams to almost like correct the ship, like make the, land it in a way that is going to be satisfactory to the most amount of people. He also had to deal with the issue of Carrie Fisher tragically passing away. And it was pretty obvious that they were making each of the trilogy films kind of centered around one of the original trilogy main characters. Right. And this was supposed to be Leia's movie, obviously. So that they had to rewrite that, had to kind of figure out how they're going to work her in there. And I think that that's pretty obvious in the film, that this was a puzzle piece that they were trying to make fit. And I think they did the best they could with an awful situation. And they kind of used her sparingly, but you could tell that, yeah, this was a tough piece to figure out for them.
Yeah, man. I thought, I think from people that are at least a little more thoughtful about movies but still didn't like The Last Jedi, just from an enjoyment perspective. And like, I can understand that if like the, I guess, limited plot progression in Last Jedi was frustrating to people. The Canto Bight pacing is definitely off, but I've seen people share that, Rian Johnson, the risks, the swings, the subversion of expectations would have been better served separated from our now dubbed Skywalker saga. And like, if we gave him the full clean slate and that you would let him commit to it over the trilogy that at least at one point he was purported to be making, that would have been a better idea. And honestly, like, I think The Last Jedi is easily the best movie of this trilogy, and it's fantastic. Blockbuster. So impressed with me still. I think that idea makes sense given the fact that Lucasfilm leadership was not going to commit to anything he actually attempted to achieve, So it's God, you can talk about the meta nature of current Star Wars choices for a long time. We haven't even gotten to the movie itself yet.
Yeah, and we will in a second. I think what I'm kind of struck with in thinking about how the choice became that this was the end to this saga, and I don't know if that was always the intention. I guess I'm misremembering if that was initially stated. I don't believe it was. It almost kind of feels like Rian Johnson in a way set up like this could potentially continue beyond a third. And I know that they wanted this to be a trilogy, but if they ever wanted to kind of like do an offshoot of this or make more movies afterwards, they could. But this really feels like a conclusion to the story. And I think I wonder if the backlash and everything from it just kind of felt like let's close the book on this and start to move forward with different stories and different characters.
Right.
And, I think it's obvious that Rey, Poe, and Finn are going to be in the lexicon moving forward. But I don't know if it's going to be
at least some of them. I'm not so sure.
Okay, so we'll get to that at the end. But certainly not like I would be surprised if there's like major films like focusing around them. But we'll talk about that at the end. While we jump into the movie here, right? So there's a lot to get through. I almost have a full page of just like notes of this thing happening, a lot of exposition, right? So we basically start off with the scroll, which is saying the dead have spoken. Palpatine sends a message out.
The dead speak.
Yes. And then it's talking about how like Rey is training, Poe and Finn are working with the rebels, but the rebels are pretty down and out at this point.
Resistance, sir. These are proper terms.
Right. And then it starts, and probably one of like the hottest openings of a Star Wars film. You just have Kylo kicking ass in these like snow fields, just murking peeps.
Getting the Wayfinder.
Yep, gets the Wayfinder, goes to Exegol, finds Palpy just chilling in his basement.
Really, just chilling.
Yeah, but like, also, I guess maybe
I got a lot of Palpatine thoughts. Let's save him for a second.
Okay, let's save him. So he finds Palpatine. Palpatine basically, he says like, "Why should I go with you?" And Palpatine basically says like, I don't know what, he convinced him that he needs to like defeat Rey or bring Rey to him first before any of that. I don't know, whatever. So, I say whatever just because I feel like there's just so much to get through. That's such a one part of it. Then it kind of cuts to Poe, Finn, and Chewie playing cards. They get this information from a spy on the Millennium Falcon. There's this awesome hyperspace jumping chase through space. That was really cool, I thought. Kind of how it went from like one planet to the next. And then they get back and the Millennium Falcon's on fire. They escaped the TIE fighters, and Poe kind of confronts Rey saying like, "What the fuck, dude? Why are you out here training? You know, getting shot up by these droids. We need you out there. You're the best fighter we got." And you know, Rey and Poe kind of go back and forth with it. A little bit of like the Leia, Han, you know, like back and forth from the original trilogy in a sense there. You know, you got Rey interacting with Leia and how Leia's kind of training Rey at this point. So there's some cool stuff.
Cool dynamic there.
For sure. And then they basically like, "Oh, we gotta go find Palpy. We gotta go get him." You know,
because they just know, like they just like get told that he's back, and they're like, "Oh shit,
yeah,
let's get to it."
So then they have to figure out how to find him, right? And they find out that there was this like Sith that was on this planet, and potentially like they can find a clue there, or they'll be able to find a wayfinder there. So they go. First time in 42 years, shout out to the 42 years being a reference back to the original Star Wars dropping 42 years ago, that they're having this big celebration on this planet, almost like
Coachella.
Man. Yeah, exactly. They run into Lando while they're trying to get away from some stormtroopers.
Not a system. He's a man.
Yeah. And Lando kind of rescues them. They get sucked into this pit through like quicksand, basically. And then that's kind of when they like, you see Rey showing out a little bit with her Force abilities, right? So she heals that like snake in the... And she healed herself in the beginning too while she was training a little bit, but she really like takes this huge gash and heals the snake. And then they get this dagger, right, with Sith writing on it, and 3PO can read it, but isn't allowed to say it. Yeah, MacGuffin one. That's funny. But you know, Rey is like, "Okay, you guys get in the speeder," because she knows that, you know, Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, which is just like never ever explained or really...
Colossal waste of time.
Yeah, cool idea though. Like they looked awesome.
I mean, they looked awesome in Force Awakens. We don't know anything more about them.
And Rey's like out there. Chewie gets kidnapped somehow. Like just
the Knights of Ren saw him, and then they got him. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. So then Rey sees Kylo coming across on a speeder. This after they had already
shot from the trailer.
Yep. And she takes down his TIE fighter, and then she sees the transport going, and she starts using the Force to stop the transport, which was awesome. And Kylo's walking
Force
across.
Unleashed callback.
Yep. And Kylo's walking across the desert, and he's using it to like send it out. And then lightning bolts come from Rey fingers, and she blows up the transport. And
amazing moment.
Yeah, looked awesome. And I remember like I think I like gasped a little bit because I was like, wow, like that was... I mean, Rey is the most powerful Jedi we've ever seen at this point. I mean, maybe Palpatine, but like you can just tell that her powers are out there. At that point, were you like, all right, spoiler, I guess, if you for some reason are still watching this, were you like, Rey is definitely Palpatine's like bloodline?
No, I still wasn't thinking about it at that time. I knew that was Lando as soon as he popped up. I was like, God, Lando, he's got his face covered just like in Jedi again, makes sense.
Yep.
But yeah, when we think for all of like 4 minutes that Chewie is killed, I'm like, oh wow, okay, that was a cool way to do it. Rey like losing control and stuff, and like we've established that she's strong and gifted and still not really in full command of that. But it ended up being kind of a false flag for what was to come. And I mean, we still got a lot of movie before she learned she's progeny of the Palp, right?
Yeah, a lot to go here still. I was starting to piece this together at this point. I was like, oh, okay, lightning bolts. We've only seen one other person do this in the Star Wars universe, or at least in the Skywalker saga. So I was like, they're probably related somehow. Now I was still kind of leaning like, is this going to be like a Luke reveal as like a father or something like that? But nah, Palpy ended up being the one. He was the baby daddy.
Grandfather,
right? Just we'll get to that in a second. Sorry, I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. I'm really excited to talk about it, though.
Keep going.
Yeah. So Rey, is on the transport, talks to Finn about how she's worried she's going to be persuaded by the dark side. They're traveling to this planet that Poe knows a guy that can reprogram C-3PO so that he can read the Sith language, which apparently was the Senate said that C-3PO is not allowed to like speak.
It's in its programming language. Bro, follow the fucking rules.
Strange. So I'm forgetting what the name of the planet is. I think it's like
Kaifer. Which one?
Okay, the one where Poe doesn't want to go back to. Kijimi.
Yeah.
So
Kerry Russell.
Kijimi. Yep. Where they run into Kerry Russell playing Zori Bliss. You have one of the most beautiful people in the world, and just cover her face the entire time.
Yeah. Just like Lupita Nyong'o playing an alien.
Just amazing choices. I really liked this planet though, because I liked how it fleshed out Poe a little bit more. The planet looked awesome. They're kind of like it reminded me a bit of in A New Hope when they're kind of running around trying to avoid the stormtroopers on the Death Star. So
where's your identification?
Right, exactly. And then they find Babu Frick. Shouts to Babu Frick, one of the best parts of the movie. Hilarious every time he's on screen. Reprogram C-3PO. We get the "I want to take one last look at my friends" line. And then they
a false flag.
Yep, exactly. And then they find out where this is. They have to go to Exegol. Or they at least find out where they can. Is it where they can find out where they can find the reader? Is that what it is? God,
that's the thing. For a movie that's so overstuffed with plot and moves at such a fast pace, it's like it does require a second viewing upon like knowing the broad strokes, just so you can pay more attention to the detail. Like I don't even remember like these specifically. Like, but yeah, I mean, 3PO translates the dagger. Is that what happens? I forget.
Yeah, he translates the dagger, and I think that says where they can find another one of the Wayfinders. And then they go outside. They are gonna get caught by the stormtroopers. Rey sees the transport. She senses Chewie's on there, so then they're gonna go up and save Chewie. Yes. And she goes up, and she's kind of sneaking around, and Poe and Finn are going to set Chewie free, and they do, but then they get caught by Hux and a couple other stormtroopers. Hux sets them free. I'm the spy. And then,
hilarious.
Yeah, Finn shoots him in the leg, which actually made a lot of sense. I didn't see that coming.
Right.
But it makes sense.
They're setting it up to be Richard E. Grant the whole time, right?
Yep.
And like, oh no, it's Hux. I was like, all right, cool. I think like Hux, Donald Gleason's really just been, chewing the scenery through 2 movies so far. Think back to his Nazi speech in Force Awakens, right? Ultimately, nothing too special as a character, I guess. Kind of serves me in being more of a first order foil to Kylo. So I think that was a fitting and satisfying way to have Hux go down, because obviously Grant kills him later.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's very satisfying. And while this is all going on, Kylo is trying to find out where Rey is. He's down on Kijimi, and they start to have their Force FaceTime call while Rey is in his office.
Love that shit.
This scene is fucking awesome, where they this is where they actually start battling a little bit. I
Yeah, it's
believe
like a
so.
duel through the Force. Like they
Right.
obviously they Last Jedi really establishes they have it's a really strong Force connection where they can kind of in each other's heads and also can interface to the Force. Obviously, we saw the water transfer in Last Jedi, and this time literally
Shirtless
transferring,
Kylo.
of course, items and a lightsaber later in the movie. So it was cool to see this further developed, and then them having literally a duel from two different places was really great, really great.
Yeah, and this is the first. This is the second one. I'm sorry, because the first one was while they were on the other planet where they find Lando, Pisana, because he pulls the necklace right off of Rey's neck,
That's right.
and that's how he
Yep.
finds them. So they have this duel. Kylo kind of finds out that Rey's in his office because I think they knock off the Darth Vader mask,
The
while
Vader
dueling.
helmet. Yeah.
He rushes back to the ship. Chewie set free. The others get away on the Millennium Falcon due to Hux letting them free, and Rey is kind of cornered on the bay, similar to A New Hope in a lot of ways. And this is where Kylo reveals to Rey that she is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. And
your parents were nobodies because they chose to be.
Mm-hmm. And you get some flashbacks here where our girl Jodie Comer is Rey's mom.
And talk about a surprise and a welcome one.
I just wanted to see Jodie Comer being Rey's mom now, like Villanelle, man. Yeah, that was awesome. And then very similar to Empire Strikes Back, Millennium Falcon kind of pulls up and Rey jumps into space and goes onto the ship and flies away with them, but kind of talks with Finn afterwards about how she saw herself on the Emperor's throne, how she's worried that she might go to the dark side. Okay, now we get to the ocean planet.
Yeah, another Endor moon, I believe. A different Endor moon, I think.
Kef Burr is
right.
What it's called. This is where they're going to go find the Wayfinder device. This is where the Death Star, the original Death Star, has landed, and big ocean planet. It's hard for them to.
Second Death Star, not the original.
Second Death Star, right? They run into like this group of people that live on the planet and want to help them out to like fix the Millennium Falcon up, which it doesn't have.
Naomi Ackie, who we saw in End of the Fucking World season 2,
and she's great. Rey just decides to go sailing on her own and go to the Death Star to find this Wayfinder. She sees a dark Rey and has a quick little duel, which I actually thought was pretty awesome. Seeing that duel. She had the teeth kind of like Palpatine when she was dueling the Vision, which I thought was awesome. And then the Vision goes away and Kylo's already there. And then they have a pretty awesome duel where they both like basically exhaust themselves. And you feel like Kylo really has Rey beaten and is like, I'm going to take you to Emperor Palpatine now. And then Leia, basically on death's door, has a Force message to Ben, communicates with him, says his name. He pauses. Rey stabs him in the stomach with the lightsaber. She senses Leia's passing. Ben senses Leia's passing. Then Rey Force heals Ben. And then takes off basically. And Finn and Naomi Ackie. Ackie, thank you.
Plays Jana in the movie.
And then Rey takes off. And she goes to Luke's planet.
Octo.
God damn. Like this is the 5th planet we're talking about at this point.
If you don't count the Millennium Falcon hyper jump ones.
And then you find her on Octo, and she's burning Kylo Ren's ship, which she stole to get there, and she's throwing logs on the fire. She goes to throw the lightsaber in the fire, and Ghost Luke catches it and says, "This is not how you should treat a Jedi's weapon." Basically, completely retconning Rian Johnson's introduction to Luke in The Last Jedi when he throws the lightsaber over his shoulder like he doesn't give a shit about it.
Frustrating moment.
Very frustrating moment. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren is having a vision of his father, Han Solo, not a Force ghost. They were pretty clear with that. Not a Force ghost. And they basically replay the moment of Kylo killing Han when he says, I don't know if I have the strength to do what I have to do. And Han says, you do.
Will you
and
help me?
Yeah. And he turns around and throws the lightsaber in the water, his lightsaber in the water. So Ben, I think, has officially turned at this point, no longer Kylo. Rey, in the meantime, is getting coached up by Ghost Force Luke, Force Ghost Luke, I mean, and he raises the red 5 X-wing from the water. Is like, here's Leia's lightsaber. Now go get him, pal. And meanwhile, Rey is like flying through space, and they're trying to figure out how are we going to get to Exegol so that we can take on the Final Order fleet that's destroyed a planet. God damn, there's so much plot in this, man. Rey leads the way. Everybody tracks her there. They send out a distress signal to everybody else in the galaxy, like, hey, we need your help. There's this big fight going on.
Didn't work in Last Jedi. Maybe it'll work now.
We'll see. They get to the planet. Rey goes down to face Palpatine. Meanwhile, Poe and everybody else show up, and they're having this big battle where they need to take down the communication thing at the bottom. And this was actually a nice touch, I felt like, because a critique has always been like, the Empire has this amazing plan set out, and then the rebels find the one thing right away and are able to undo it, basically, and like disable them. And then they switched it up, and they put it in, the Empire was able to make another strategic move. So then it kind of fell onto them destroying this ship that was now the communication link, which was cool. And Finn was leading that charge along with what's her name, Marjorie or Maggie, or I'm forgetting her name. The one who he went, I'm forgetting. Hold on. Poe's helper to take down the ship where that was the communication ship. 1 second. Mexico, Finn.
Who are you referring to? Rose.
That's who it is. Thank you.
Right. Basically sidetracked for most of the movie.
Yep.
That was a little more in the end.
And then Rey is taking on Palpatine. Palpatine's trying to turn her. I don't want to kill you. I want you to kill me, so my powers go into you. This is your destiny. Blah, blah, blah. You seem to have some thoughts.
No, keep going. It's just unclear. It's hard to follow in the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to follow, and also I don't really understand the logistics of the basement that Palpatine's living in. It's like a coliseum, basically. There's all these like Sith down there or something. The people that are watching this all happen. Rey is then basically saying, I'm not going to turn. Palpatine opens up the sky and is showing that like all your friends are going to die if you don't turn. Rey's like, okay, I'll turn, save my friends. It's all about to happen. And then Ben, who's been rushing to get there to save Rey, basically, or help Rey out, they force communicate as he's getting the shit kicked out of him by the Knights of Ren. And she slips him a lightsaber. He does his thing and kills all the Knights of Ren. Rey starts trying to like push back against Palpatine, and Kylo shows up. Then Palpatine, because they're kindred souls, basically, Rey and Kylo, is able to just take their power. He basically like regrows his gnarly hands, and you can tell he gets his strength back, and then he starts taking all the ships down with his electricity powers, his lightning powers. And then Kylo and Rey both get up at different points. Kylo gets sent into the depths of hell. I'm going to do what a Skywalker did to me and throw you down a hole. Rey starts to, gets her lightsaber back and is like pushing back against Palpatine, who then puts his lightning powers on her, and she's kind of fighting back. And then she calls the other lightsaber, and she has the dual lightsabers, and that destroys Palpatine, basically. Am I missing anything here? I feel like I'm like...
yeah, probably, but...
Yeah, this is the gist. And then all the other people show up. Like Lando shows up with this whole fleet of people from the galaxy. The distress signal worked. You're not alone.
Shout out Wedge.
Yep, Wedge Antilles. Awesome seeing him back. And they basically destroy the First Order fleet.
Final Order.
Final Order fleet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back and celebrate. Chewie gets a medal. And then the very end, Rey takes Leia and Luke's lightsabers, Force buries them on Tatooine. You see Luke and Leia as a ghost, and Rey tells someone on the planet, I am Rey Skywalker. She takes the last name Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. Revealing that she had built her own saber.
Yeah, and that saber is awesome, dude. The click on, the on button, that was sick. Okay, so I just basically did like 20 minutes of plot. Dave, your general thoughts about the movie, moments, characters, things you want to really dig into here.
Yeah, I said it before, but just from like a filmmaking perspective, I think it's really overstuffed with convoluted or complex plots. There's a lot of MacGuffins with the Wayfinder and the dagger with the Sith writing, and a lot of stuff that and is feeling distracting from like the best aspects of the movie in this trilogy. And along the way, having this complex plot, I think the editing and the cuts are just quite jarring. Like I was sitting at like the back of the theater and I was still like, God, I feel like I'm really zoomed in and stuff. And such a stark and unfortunate contrast to Last Jedi, which looks so great and has such a great sense of place and cinematography. And you think of Gareth Edwards, and even though he didn't finish Rogue One, the sense of scale is so expertly realized in that movie. And here it just feels, I mean, it just visually, I think, was pretty unremarkable, which is just disappointing. Like, it looks fine. It looks in line with expectations, but nothing was really like wowing you. And that was just disappointing to me. Along those lines, it was cool seeing Poe and Finn kind of just in action, leading the resistance and stuff. I can understand Boyega's reservations at The Last Jedi, given that Finn's kind of sidelined for a lot of that movie, and it's part of the lesser parts of it, with Canto Bight and stuff. I get that. But the MVPs of this trilogy and this movie are Rey and Kylo, Rey and Ben, and they really always have been. And anytime I'm not with them, I'm just less interested. I think Daisy really is fantastic in this. A lot of screen time again. I think he's great. I think Kylo was a little stronger last time, but he's still really good. And just they're such compelling figures that it's just annoying when like there's some distractions. And a lot of stuff it's familiar. It's like this, the swashbuckling nature of Star Wars and stuff. But when we're just reverting back on old tropes just to try and land the plane in a agreeable to all people manner, it just kind of came off to me as like Craven brand realignment, and the Palpatine stuff is really the biggest sin to me, just because it felt completely unnecessary the whole time. And like with the expanded universe now decanonized as Legends, Palpatine had multiple clones, resurrected himself, and all those stories. That's not a new idea. Even him having like a secret fleet in the unknown regions, that's where Thrawn comes from originally. Like the Outbound Flight, there's tons of stuff with that, but having Rey actually just be descendant of Palpatine, I don't think added anything to the movie. And that's why I'm really annoyed that they would 180 like that. Because, saying that, oh, well, yes, there are lots of Jedi in the prequels, let's not forget. But if you want to truly be a Force user of consequence, you got to be a Solo, a Kenobi, or a Skywalker, or a Palpatine. So, Rey, you were so strong before, it only right that you were relayed to someone. And I hate that. I think it's just the message that Johnson originally gave, that, you could be something in spite of your upbringing, your surroundings, just way stronger to me. I think it's more tangible and like kind of transcends Star Wars, just a better movie theme.
I agree.
With that choice though, like, it would have been nice if the Palpatine stuff made a little more sense.
That's where I was, man. I mean, like, I just was like, okay, how is Palpatine back? Like, how did this work? How did he get here? Like, none of it was explained, and it just felt so like, it felt fan servicey and just kind of like shoehorned in to be like, we know you didn't like the last movie. Here's something from the past movies that we know you will like, and it's disappointing.
Well, I'm kind of reviewing it like this is what they viewed as their get out of jail free card, their break in case of emergency. Well, Johnson established Snoke didn't matter, and gets killed in an unexpected way. Amazing moment in the movie. I think really cool for subverting tropes. In a sense, Snoke still doesn't matter. He was just kind of like a clone, manufacturing from Palpatine. Unclear, but at least you understand that yes, Snoke truly was inconsequential. He was Palpatine was pulling the strings like he always did, right? But like I'm willing to accept that Palpatine survived. I accept that Darth Maul lived. After all, he with Clone Wars and stuff. It's like like the dark side of the Force is quite strong. We know that, but like you would think just for general audiences, people that maybe when they watch Solo, they're like, oh wait, Maul's back. I don't watch the kid cartoons. I didn't know that. That's weird. And then how it would be weird again with Palpatine. That's like I don't know. It's just it's obviously going to be trodden later in the comics and the novels and stuff, which will be canon and will satisfy some. But I just think from the movie, it's just unnecessarily confusing. I mean, I think the choice to that, having the movie start with the crawl, and it's like Palpatine lives. Kylo already knows. The Resistance will know in a second. It didn't feel any more congruous to me. It's just be like, oh, they all know. It's not a surprise, really. It's just a in media res choice. Oh yeah, Palpatine's back now, and we'll act from there. It just weird structural choice. And once we get there, again, it's just so confusing. And some of it doesn't matter. Like the people in his like crowd room are those Force ghosts from past Sith? Is the Sith race back? Are they just new followers? Who the fuck knows? Also, who really cares? Doesn't really matter. But just the overall confusion of it's just annoying. And then like along, in connection to that, like other moments of, oh, let's get back to what we were trying to set up before. The Knights of Ren are back now. Are they? Complete waste of time. Did not do anything. Again, because they're not explained. And I think some people will be like, well, if Johnson followed the blueprint more, it would have been explained better. But like I said before, I don't think loyalty to, lobbing up the volleyball means you need to spike it the way the lobber wanted you to, So just frustrating things. And I again, just from a filmmaking perspective, I wish the movie was structurally a little different just so it worked better.
Yeah, and unnecessary things too, like Kylo welding his mask back together, really had very little payoff other than it looked cool. And I had that moment where I sense you're disturbed by my appearance, General Hux, and other than that, he takes it off pretty quickly and never really puts it back on. We get Kylo Ren is a bad guy up until basically the last act of this movie. Like that's not something you need to explain to the people who are going to see this, and the mask isn't going to do that. It just feels like they were like, this is something you didn't like from The Last Jedi, so we're going to fix that here.
No real reason. We'll just do it though, just from like a simple narrative thing.
Exactly. One thing I thought that was a good moment and kind of a nice callback is, or a nice thing that touched the film, was how they added the voices of people from the past. So in the first scene, Kylo, is being mansplained by Emperor Palpatine, how Palpatine has been puppeteering basically his entire life. Right. I created Snoke, and I'm every voice that's been in your head. And it kind of changes from like Palpatine to Vader to Snoke, which I thought that was cool. And then similarly, like the mirroring moment when Rey is laying on the floor trying to work up the power to take on Palpatine, now with all taking her and Ben's power, she says, "Be with me." Call back to an earlier scene where she was trying to feel ghosts of Jedi past, and she hears Yoda and she hears Hayden
Luke.
Christensen.
That was him, right? I thought I heard him.
Definitely, because he says how he brought balance to the Force. Which I thought that was a nice touch. Like shout out Hayden Christensen. You hear Mace Windu.
Obi-Wan, I believe.
I think you actually hear someone from one of the Akira. Is that that's a Star Wars Jedi, right?
Kira?
Kira.
That's
No,
Emilia
no,
Clarke in Solo, not a Jedi.
now there's a female Jedi that's very popular. I think it was actually Anakin's Padawan. I'm
Oh,
forgetting her
Ahsoka.
name. Ahsoka. Yes, I think you actually
Mm.
hear her voice as
Oh, that's
well
cool. Didn't
in
notice
this.
that.
So they have basically every Jedi
Was
saying,
Qui-Gon there?
with you.
Was Liam Neeson in there? Not
I
sure.
don't know. I need to look that up, but I thought that was a really cool moment and like a nice way to tie in like the whole like the entire trilogies together. I'm wondering if Doku's voice was also in there at the beginning with Kylo. I didn't write that down. But you think back to some of the other like fan servicey moments, like the stuff with Ray and Luke on Luke's planet. Um, I mean, how did you feel about a lot of that stuff? Did you feel like that fit? Did you feel like it didn't fit?
Wait, what stuff? Sorry.
With Luke and Ray on Luke's planet.
Um, that's the thing. It's like the comment about the a lightsaber deserves respect. Like that's an annoying like light off a firework for the Reddit bros. Like that's just frustrating because it's so on the nose. Everything else Luke was saying was fine because again, it's like Luke didn't break bad. Luke just had a crisis of faith. That didn't mean Luke didn't come back around in the end. That's literally how he goes out in The Last Jedi. So everything Luke was saying, for the most part, I didn't think really strove too far away. And I think it's cool to get the reveal that, yeah, Leia did get trained. That was something that happened in the EU, hasn't really been explored in the new canon. And she actually had a lightsaber, right? And I guess the reasons why she stopped being trained, seeing it would go south with Ben later. Again, a little confusing because you don't get enough time with the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was cool. We fully expected Mark Hamill to be back. We knew he was in the movie in some capacity, so I was not surprised at that. And they make Last Jedi does show the Red 5 in the water pretty distinctly, so you knew that was always there to be used if necessary. And I guess it was kind of cool, seeing her going back and looking at the Jedi texts again, right? Because like Last Jedi makes a great point about how Luke's like, you don't need these, and Yoda starts the fire and stuff, which is an amazing moment, and then Ray saves the books, right? And again, I think that was actually some of the best stuff. I think it basically kind of flowed off Last Jedi well, minus the obvious, comments like with the saber shit. So yeah, that was fine with me. And like Ray's like inner turmoil, I wish we got a little more just along the way, because we're always distracted by other stuff because there's so much plot in this, and it's like we could have got the same plot payoff with a little less A to B plot. And like we like Kylo's inner turmoil is what makes him an amazing character,
right?
I mean, that's super easy to understand. And Ray, I think, struggling with being told that she actually does have an identity and having to grapple that with the rejections he had already accepted. Wish we got a little more of that. But yeah, the Luke stuff I think was okay.
And I think the thing about Rey's inner turmoil is that she had this turmoil regardless of what her identity was, right? So she, like Luke, was already struggling with like her faith in terms of the light versus the dark. Like, what is my true destiny with this? So she was already kind of on this path of identity struggle regardless. Certainly then finding out your grandfather is one of the most evil people ever is going to impact your your identity. And I do think I do wish they had searched that a little bit more. The Kylo stuff. I mean, Adam Driver was absolutely phenomenal in this role throughout the three. I felt like the moment when he turns with Han was probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Just because it was basically as a hallucination in a sense, for Kylo, but just such a perfect portrayal and a good mirroring, I think, of a very memorable moment of the trilogy. And I think that's some of Driver's best acting. It actually kind of reminded me a bit of the scene in Marriage Story when he's like reading the letter, because it's so subtle what he's doing with his face in it, but it says so much about where he's actually at, you know?
Right.
I was just really impressed with that, and the whole arc of him in general was
Yeah.
fantastic.
I've been trying to craft the Rise of Skywalker meme using the Marriage Story memes, and I haven't been able to think of something yet, just because they're so good. I wish you would die. I wish I could recreate that somehow. But yeah, I mean, I think Kylo Ren is the best blockbuster villain since Heath Ledger. I have no qualms about saying that. He's such an amazing creation, so well written, and so easy and simple to grasp. Right, he's an amazing foil to our protagonist in Rey, right? Because he knows exactly where he came from, and it was unbearable to him. And his constant internal struggle. And the Force Awakens, it flips this on its head, because we're used to the temptation in the dark. But no, Kylo, it's the temptation to go back to the light the whole time for him. And we had never seen that before. So I think he's incredibly satisfying. And I was really thrilled when Rey heals him on the Endor moon, just because I was like, nah, there's no way he dies right now. It's too abrupt. Yeah, and sure enough, it wasn't. That was let me exhale. I was like, no, there's no way. You just literally would be like ripping out a few pages of the book. You wouldn't have ended anything.
How do you feel about the way he dies? This was the part I overlooked in terms of my recap. Mm-hmm. Basically what happens is Rey, the power that she uses to destroy Palpatine, kills her basically, and mm-hmm. Kylo uses Force bringing back to life abilities to save Rey, and
basically transfers his like life force to her. Yeah, I liked it. I kind of saw it coming. I kind of expected it, because we had seen a lot of that established so far, with even Palpatine taking stuff out of them to build himself back up physically. Yeah, so that's kind of what I expected. I think it's I think it was satisfying that Kylo would meet full redemption through death. I think redemption through death was kind of predicted for him, at least in some way, and I thought that was an effective way for it to happen, given the palpy of it all.
How did you feel about the kiss?
Yeah, so I'm like, there's anticipation. I imagine maybe that's a boo moment for some people. I don't know. Like, a lot of people were shipping that, like the Reylo stuff, and yeah, I mean, it was not something I was like rooting for one way or the other, but I don't know, I think it kind of made sense to me, because they were drawn together mm-hmm. through these movies, and they had such a deep connection. Yeah, and yeah, I think it works. I think there's lots of thrilling moments in this movie, and that's what makes a lot of it so disappointing, because like the frustrating structure of stuff just makes it so disjointed. But yeah, I think everything with Rey and Kylo is amazing.
They had, I think, good bones of something here, like the Wayfinder as a MacGuffin. I think makes a lot of sense, and having to like decipher it makes a lot of sense. The fact that they had to find the Wayfinder twice, that they had to not only find a way to reprogram C-3PO, but then off of that also save Chewie, and then talk about Rey's parentage, basically within like a 30-minute span. It was just a lot, and I found myself maybe not feeling confused, but maybe just like overwhelmed at times by how much was going on. The only real break you get from constantly going somewhere or constant action, the first act, is when you see Chewie, Finn, and Poe playing for Star Wars chess, or whatever it's called.
Were you about to say Fortnite?
And I was gonna say Force chess. Fortnite would be way better. But yeah, when you see them playing chess, and that's actually a really funny moment.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. But other than that, it's like action. I actually kind of brings me to something I want to ask you. How do you feel about Chewie throughout this?
I think he should have died from the lightning.
Damn. That would have been so unceremonious for Chewie.
True, but what we got wasn't any more ceremony. It's like, oh, he gets the medal at the end, but it's like,
I was happy for Chewie getting the medal.
Yeah, sure, but like, Chewie doesn't speak to anyone. We don't know what Chewie sounds like. We don't know what Chewie says at any time. He's he's a secondary character. Him getting extra time is like 3PO getting extra time. Like, we didn't need 3PO to look back at everyone one last time. That ultimately didn't, like, it was fine, but it didn't work for me as much because we already knew that he could just learn everything again. Like, he gets his mind wiped in Revenge of the Sith, resets. Like, he's still built together. He's basically still there. And even though R2 literally gives him the download and he learns most of the stuff immediately, even if he didn't, R2 would have just rolled with it and he would have learned everyone again. Like, that stuff and keeping Chewie alive. Like, he didn't need to die either, but I think just focusing on that is like unnecessarily looking at the past to establish old feeling again, and is getting away from, I think, the new relationships that we need. And I mean, ultimately, there's a lot of characters in this sequel trilogy because we have all the old people and all these new people, and it's hard to balance.
It's incredibly hard to balance and to give everybody the time they deserved. When I was watching this and kind of thinking about what was I expecting, or what was I hoping to see out of it, I think the Kylo Rey stuff, like we talked about, really hit. I think the satisfying endings for the original trilogy people were hit and miss. Leia's tough because I feel like she gets a strong moment there and she gets a little bit more explained. It was cool, like you said, seeing her training, but obviously they could only do so much with what they already had filmed and what they could kind of dub over with like the facial
of course
digitizing. Luke, I felt like was fine. I thought it was good to have him back. We knew he was coming back. It was okay. Lando, I was kind of like, all right, fine to see Lando. Chewie, I was fine with.
Yeah.
I didn't care about 3PO, but how the hell do you sideline R2 for so much of the film, but give C3PO so much of the shine?
Interesting.
He can talk, especially because George has said that R2 is kind of like the hero of the story in a way.
The narrator.
Yeah, the narrator. It's like, how is he then sidelined?
Let's not forget he's also sidelined in Force Awakens. He's literally just in low power mode, just chilling in the base. Also, I mean, even R2, but like, we get all the C3PO and we barely get any BB-8.
Right.
It's just a choice to focus on the past again.
But we get Drio.
Yeah, Dio, whatever his name is.
Dio, yeah.
Yeah.
The little
apparently becomes another MacGuffin once they talk to him.
Once they talk to him.
I mean, apparently, you read the New York Times article that got some attention when Boyega's comments came out of it, but overall, it's kind of is illuminating. Abrams and Chris Terrio, who co-wrote it, like, they're kind of making this movie on the fly, changing the script and stuff, and that's not inherently new to Star Wars. Everyone knows that Darth Vader and Luke's dad weren't always the same people. Luke's sister and Leia were not always the same people. George changed his mind in the making too, but I think everyone really can agree, and having seen what we've gotten, that the making these movies one at a time, inherently this is going to cause problems, especially when you truly decide to 180 on what the movies tell you to care about movie to movie. And it's just that kind of way of making studio art is difficult.
Certainly. And it just kind of amazes me because Disney has been so strategic in so many ways, and to not have just like a overall plan for this, like a overall, like, I think the one thing that they had as a certainty was that they wanted Kylo and Rey to have this connection throughout.
Yeah.
Where it's who will turn who, and eventually Rey is going to turn Kylo or defeat him. Like, that's the way the arc of this trilogy goes. And that being the main thing that they had planned out worked the best. So the fact that they didn't have the rest of this just like kind of written out from the beginning is just so, like, it's disappointing. And certainly I understand wanting to like make adjustments on the fly, but it's evident that the seeds of things that they started with, that they were like, this is the central part of the story, worked out the best. And I feel like there's just a missed opportunity by not having a better plan for how to approach this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other thoughts on like moments from the film? anything like that. I mean, we've gone through a lot of it. The battle scenes I thought were like you said choppy, but a lot of cool stuff in there. The lightsaber battles I thought were cool.
What do you think of the comment about the Holdo maneuver? Holdo maneuver, that's 1 in a million. I didn't inherently find that offensive. Like, I think that's kind of like a good like canon establishment. Like, yeah, that's not going to work every time.
Yeah,
it's not like, oh yeah, we'll just hyperspace in the shit and blow it up all the time. Like, I think it's kind of good from like a world building. I didn't see that as a shot across the bow at Last Jedi the way some people have. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't think much about that either. To be honest, I kind of just went. I don't even think I tuned into that much. I thought it was cool seeing like Admiral Akbar must have had a kid at some point. We see.
I mean, we've seen other Mon Calamari before. That's not a surprise. Remember, Radis dies in Rogue One.
I'm gonna say that's Admiral Akbar's kid.
On Akbar's ship. He has other compatriots of his. Like,
oh yeah,
he wasn't the only one.
I'm still calling it Akbar's kid. I don't know. Any other cool moments that you liked, or just things that you enjoyed about the film? I feel like we've been pretty negative for the most part, and I enjoyed it. Like, that's the thing; it's entertaining as hell.
But that's what I'm saying. Everything we're talking about is a meta thing,
right?
Like, I think like just like filmmaking wise, it's choppy, it's overstuffed, it inherently dilutes some of its moments because it can't get things the time they deserve. I think the broad strokes of this plot would have worked better if we weren't obsessed with throwing extra stuff from the past, like the Knights of Ren. If we just eliminated that, and then be like, "Oh, here, guys, the Knights of Ren, here they are. We have nothing more to say about that, but they're here." Like, we could have just got them in comics, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, I think like it's just still thrilling, and like there's stuff that's just going to tug on your heartstrings at times because that's Star Wars, and like that's ultimately what they were going for. This make you feel good again, and you can look at the incredibly wide range of reactions to this movie. I think the critics, because they're going to think about things a certain way, it's just the way movie criticism works, are focusing a lot of the negative, and it makes sense that would happen. But just from fan, subject to fan response, it's all over the place. I've seen people say it's their favorite Star Wars movie. I think that's because, like, if you find a lot of these moments, if they pay off for you, and it's truly thrilling stuff, And again, like again, Kylo Ren, I adore everything about the character. So, like, I still find all that stuff satisfying. But, yeah, it's just a little bungled, and it's kind of odd that this was the decision. This is what they decide to use to get everybody back, And it's like JJ, he kind of did Star Trek in the Darkness again. He kind of fumbled the ball once he had to do more with the initial setup, and it's
I will say the one thing this movie does well that I think The Last Jedi did not do great was it put the main cast together, and their chemistry and their performances I think is the best part of it, and it's fun seeing them all together
in the Falcon,
sharing the mission together at any point. So
it's great.
I definitely enjoyed that. We talked. I said before, I think we'll be seeing these characters moving forward. Maybe not in like as feature films, maybe cameos, jumping in here and there. What do you think about that? Who do you think we'll be seeing more of moving forward from this cast? Driver's gone.
Driver. Now that Driver's dead, he has no reason to come back. Driver's too talented of an actor to want to come back. Again, I'm actually curious. Did Harrison Ford actually shoot that new scene where he comes back? Because he looks just like he did in Force Awakens. I wonder if that's old footage, the same way the Leia stuff was old Force Awakens footage. Because the reason I say that is because Ford was a similar thing. He didn't want to come back. He only came back to Force Awakens because they wouldn't kill him, right? So I don't think Oscar Isaac wants to come back either. He's another amazing actor in his prime. The obligations that go into shooting franchise movies and being obligated for multiple sequels is taxing. And if you have a big career, you don't want that. I don't think Daisy Ridley wants to come back as Rey either. She was never a Star Wars fan going in. I love the character. I think she gave us a great performance the whole time. But I think she's ready to move on too, and actually really establish her career a little bit more. She's only had a few things pop up since then. Again, she hasn't had the time. Boyega, though, I think Boyega as Finn is the most likely to maybe get a Disney Plus series. But the thing is, I wonder if we're immediately gonna get anything in the post Rise of Skywalker realm. Mandalorian, of course, we know season 2 is being shot right now. But Mandalorian takes place a few years after Return of the Jedi. Force Awakens is 30 years after Return of the Jedi. That's a whole sandbox for the whole life of that show, so that's fine, right? We know we're getting a Kenobi show. That's in the past. Cassian Andor show from Tony Gilroy. That's in the past. I don't know if they're going to rush to give us stuff post Rise of Skywalker, because I think they're still working on whatever the new movies are going to be. You know, we know about those dates, whether they hold or not. After Benioff and Weiss leaving, you know, things are definitely slowed. Does the Feige stuff come to the forefront now? But yeah, I don't think we're going to see any of them for a while. But if I had to bet on someone coming back, it's Boyega.
Boyega. Yeah, I agree. I think Boyega is probably most likely to come back. Although I'm going to put this prediction out there. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Rey in some form taking Baby Yoda in, help train him. Maybe like a cameo from Mandalorian, because there's only so long Mando can carry Baby Yoda around. I'm also saying this not having seen the most recent one, so if something has happened with that, I don't think so. But
we don't jump ahead 30-something years. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, but I think that could be a possibility. Is like all right, Rey's like gonna take Baby Yoda in, and Mando can go off and have other adventures.
By the time Rise of Skywalker, is Baby Yoda like a teenager now, or at least of Padawan age? I think he's post baby age, right?
Dude, he's like 50.
He's 50, but he's still a kid. Yoda dies like 900. I think Yaddle was like several hundred years old in Phantom Menace. I'm just wondering, like, when is puberty for the Yoda species? Is it past 100? Is it 200? I don't know. I think canonically that kind of has to factor into if Rey can train Baby Yoda.
We'll see.
That's a little galaxy brain for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not really sure who else we'll see. I think Poe might pop in for like cameos here and there. You know, Oscar Isaac, very busy, very in-demand actor. I would really like to see,
if you pay enough, he'll probably come back. I mean, who's to say?
I would like to see like a Poe just like, you know, being a fighter in space type movie, like a one-off, something like that. I feel like that could be pretty interesting.
Sure.
But yeah, you know, it really feels like this is a closing here of the saga, which is, I think, good and bad in a way. I'm ready for some new Star Wars content, but
let's not forget though, Rey buries the sabers at the Lars homestead. They always can be dug up in a few decades from now, right? Will we see a Skywalker again? I think, unfortunately, yes, we will.
Well, we'll see if we're still doing a podcast when that happens, Dave. Any last thoughts about the Rise of Skywalker, or just Star Wars in general?
I'm curious to see the overall box office. Like Force Awakens, this is unlike Last Jedi. Like Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker has its opening weekend go directly into the holiday week, so you really can't judge the performance until we're after New Year's, because all these weekdays from this point on kind of serve as weekend days in the way the box office functions. You can look at the history of this year by year. We know it's not doing well in China. That's no surprise. Star Wars just has not worked in China. There was no legacy to it, you know. Superheroes have taken over, that kind of stuff. But, you know, I think it looks like we're looking around 200 million opening weekend. But I'm curious to see how high does it get here domestically on like January 4th or whatever, you know. Next time we record, we'll be able to answer that. But people are showing up for it. That's not a question. So any sentiment of The Last Jedi hurting turnout, I don't think it's true. And even the mediocre reviews aren't really going to make an impact either. So that's interesting.
I wanted to ask you, just as like maybe a wrap-up question, more satisfying ending to overall saga, the Rise of Skywalker or Avengers Endgame?
Interesting. So I think Avengers Endgame clearly works better. That was the main takeaway of Avengers Endgame. It's like, wow, that was way more functional than anyone expected, especially given where Infinity War leaves that story, right? But it's hard for me to look at it as an ending. It's an ending for 2 people, 3 people. Iron Man Captain America, and I guess Black Widow, even though we're getting the prequel soon.
Mm-hmm.
So it is different, you know? And also,
Sure.
like, Marvel's much more serialized, 3 movies a year, all of a piece. Star Wars is much grander and has, I think, more loftier thematic ambitions. That's always been the case. So they're quite different. But yeah, I mean, Avengers Endgame is a better film and a more successful film, both financially and creatively. And that does speak to something, you know, what Feige's expected influence in a certain sense over the future movies to come.
Good answer. I'm going to say Endgame though. You know, I do think about it as like at least the ending of like that phase. Certainly other characters live on, but it's going in a much different direction. I think those movies are going to be different in a way moving forward. But I think both of these were satisfying in their own way. And if you haven't seen The Rise of Skywalker and you just listened to this entire spoiler podcast, go see it so you can join in.
Leave a comment about why you did that. I'm curious.
Yeah. Some people like to have it spoiled, man. But leave a comment regardless. Let us know your thoughts. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be back with our best TV, movies, and music of the decade in the next couple of weeks.